everyone, happy Wednesday. Welcome to my Pregnancy Wednesday vlog. Today, because I'm how many weeks now? 24, around 24, 25 weeks today. I wanted to talk about something that I usually start, well, in my first pregnancy I started thinking about this around this time because you're technically full term at 37 weeks and your baby could come at 37 weeks. So I'm of the mind that it's better to be prepared and knowing where you're gonna go when your baby starts to, or when your baby decides it's time to arrive. So today I just wanted to quickly talk about the three different options, or the main three options that you have for when it's time to actually have your baby. Of course, depending on where you live, you have different options on where you can give birth. There's the most common, which is the hospital, which is where I think most first-time moms, or even most moms, go to have their baby, is the hospital. The second option, which might not be available in your area, or maybe it's kind of far away, or maybe it's right next to you, or in England they're all over the place, is a birthing center. And then the third option that you have is to have your baby at home. So those are the three options I'm going to talk about today. I obviously don't have experience with all of the options. I only have experience with 1.5, we could say. But, you know, I did go to the hospital where I could have had Emmeline in many times, and you get a tour and they tell you how everything works. And I had, at home, my experience with Emmeline because she was born at home. And then my original plan was to go to a birthing center with Emmeline. So I also know a little bit about that. I'm no expert, of course. I always recommend going and checking out the different facilities where you can have your baby. Thinking about and talking to your midwife or your doctor about having your baby at home if that's something that you might want to do. Going and viewing the birthing center if there's one near you, and going and taking a tour of the hospital and seeing what everything's like, being there a couple of times and knowing what it's going to be like when you're actually there. So I definitely recommend doing that no matter what option you decide in the end. I also recommend taking a drive to where you are going to have your baby as the due date gets closer. Maybe do the drive a couple of times. Know, is there a quicker route you can take if it's rush hour? And just be familiar with the route. Make sure your birthing partner, whoever's going to be there, if someone's going to be there with you, make sure they know the route as well. Because the last thing you want is to be lost and trying to figure it out. Oh my goodness, the cell phone is wrong, the navigation system is wrong, we can't get there. So drive there a couple of times and make sure you're familiar with the route of getting there. I'm going to talk about the least common, which is a home birth, which is actually where I had Emmeline at home. There's always pros and cons with each situation. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'm just going to talk about some main things to think about when you are deciding. So obviously if you have a home birth, you're going to be in your own home. If you're renting your space, it's probably a good idea to double check with your landlord if that's okay with them that you have a home birth. The other thing is, to have a home birth, usually you need to have a straightforward, no complications pregnancies. If you're pregnant with twins, I've known women who have had home births with twins, it's fine. But it needs to be an uncomplicated pregnancy. So if you have any complications, you're probably not going to be able to have a home birth. I mean, at the end of the day, you probably could, but it's going to be strongly advised that you are in a hospital setting if you have any complications such as preeclampsia, if your baby is breech. I don't really think breech is a complication, but it could be, you never know. So if you have a straightforward, normal, healthy pregnancy, home birth is definitely probably an option for you. The second thing to think about is cost. Is it free to have a home birth, or does it cost money? In England, it's free to have a home birth. In Norway, it's not free to have a home birth. It's expensive. You have to pay for your midwife to come out, and they might need to be with you for an extremely long period of time. So you do have to save money for it. I think in the US as well, I don't think it's free. I'm pretty sure you have to pay for that, and insurance might not cover it. So you definitely want to check and think about price, because that is a factor. When you're at home, there's no pain medication, really. You could probably get a TENS machine at home. You can use different objects for moving around during labor, like a birthing ball or a labor stool, and you could probably get some homeopathy. But at the end of the day, there's not going to be any prescription medications there for pain relief. So it's definitely something to think of. If you're certain that you're not going to have an epidural no matter what, then you should be fine. And if you're certain that you don't want any medical interventions in terms of pain relief, then you're totally fine to be having your baby at home. If you think that you might want an epidural, and that's something that you really are considering, having a home birth is probably not your best option because you won't have that option at home. A positive thing about being at home is there's nowhere to drive. When it's time to have your baby, you just hang out at home in the own comfort of your own space. You know how everything works, you know where everything is, you have lots of distractions and things that you can do. So it is really calming to be at home in your own setting. You don't have lots of people that you don't know, lots of sounds, you're not in an unfamiliar environment. So that's definitely a plus and something to think about. If you really want to have a water birth, which might not be available in the hospital or birthing center, or because of high demand, or they just don't have the facility, you can probably do that at home. Even if you get a little kiddie pool and get in it, or your tub, it's definitely something that you can choose to have at home. So there's a lot more flexibility with what you have available to you when you're in your own home. And you also have much more control over the environment because nobody's there to tell you, well, these lights have to be on. You need to sit down. You can't go over there. It's your own house. You can do whatever you want. We'll definitely have a midwife. I mean, I would assume that all home births at this point are attended by a midwife. It might be that a doctor or an obstetrician could be there, but if you're in England, it's going to be a midwife who's there. If you're in Norway, it's going to be a midwife. So I don't really know about the US or any other countries. I don't. But the one thing that I think a lot of women are very hesitant about with a home birth is, oh my gosh, what if something goes wrong? I'll tell you right now, the midwives are very, very well trained, as is your doctor. If there's any sign that anything's going wrong, the heartbeat is irregular on the baby, anything is completely, even if it's the smallest thing, is not going the way that it should be, you will immediately be transferred to the hospital. They don't take any chances. Go. And the other thing, if you feel uncomfortable when you're at home and you've decided, I want to go to the hospital right now, you can always ask for that. And they will not question you. They will just say, okay, you want to go to the hospital? That's your choice. Let's go. Those are just some things to think about with a home birth. I did have a home birth with Emmeline. I really enjoyed it. I won't talk about it now, but I will talk about it maybe next week to tell you guys my experiences with a home birth. But if you're having a straightforward pregnancy and you don't want any medical interventions or medical pain relief, it's definitely something to consider. The next place you could have your baby is a birthing center. One thing to think about is distance. How close is the birthing center to your house? Sometimes the birthing centers are really far away and it's quite a drive. Sometimes they're just down the road. In England, the birthing center that I wanted to go to was 15 minutes away, so it was really close. A birthing center, it's kind of like a midway point between a home birth and between a hospital birth. You're not going to have as many medical pain relief options. You can have a TENS machine, they might have gas and air, but I don't really think there's anything else. So it has a little bit more options for pain relief, but it doesn't, medical pain relief, but it doesn't have the same amount that a hospital would have. You're not at home, so it's a midwife-led unit. There will be other women there. There's not going to be that many, but there will be other women there, and there's lots of midwives. And you are in a medical facility, so they are going to have more medical devices if something were to go wrong. You know, not... If something were to go wrong after you've had the baby, in terms of infant support. If anything goes wrong, again, in a birthing center, you will immediately be transferred to the nearest hospital by an ambulance. Same thing as if you're at home. The second anything is slightly unusual, there's no questions, you're immediately transferred. So it is important to know that transfer, it's not something they mess about with. They don't wait until it's really bad and then transfer you. The second anything goes wrong, they will transfer you. And it's something, if you're considering a birthing center or home birth, you can always talk to your midwife about that and say, at what point do you transfer me? And the other thing to think about, which I forgot to say, with a birthing center and with a home birth, is think about how far away is the hospital? What would your transfer time be with an ambulance? Something to think about. If you live really far away from the hospital and the transfer time is maybe an hour, home birth might make you a little bit uncomfortable. Usually a birthing center is in the hospital or really close to it, so the transfer time is not going to be that much. A birthing center is a lot more flexible with the environment around you. It's a lot more calming. It's not as sterile as a hospital. It's very calm environment. It's really secure, at least the birthing centers that I've been in. And they have a lot more flexibility. If you want the lights dimmed in the room, you can do that. They really want you to have a comfortable experience having your baby and the nicest experience you can have. So there's a lot of facilities, a lot of options. Most of them have multiple birthing pools, so they're not just one. They have birthing balls and different things you can sit on or use while you're in labor. They encourage you to walk around and they encourage you to be active in labor. They really encourage that. So for me, like a birthing center, it's really nice, meet in the middle. You don't want a medicated pregnancy, but you're a little bit not ready to have a home birth. It's a bit scary and daunting. So, you know, being at home or being in a birthing center is a really good compromise. There's less chance for medical interventions. There is no time limit put on you when you are in a birthing center. Sometimes the hospitals are under a lot of stress, or there's a lot of women who are waiting, they're having their babies at the same time, and they don't have space, so they really need to kind of, okay, get you in and get you out. No, that's nothing, you know, that's just something that can happen in a hospital because there are so many people, and a hospital's only so big. Much less likely to happen in a birthing center. So if you have one near you, I think it would be nice to, you know, talk to the doctors and midwives about it, go see the birthing center, talk to some women who have had their babies there and see what you think about it. The final thing I wanted to say about a birthing center is that they are extremely labor friendly. They want you to be as active as you can. So anything you want to do or you feel that you have to do, you can do at a birthing center. You can eat if you're hungry, you know, drink whatever you want, move around, walk around the halls, go outside. It's really active labor friendly in terms of moving around and being active while you're actually in labor. Let's talk about our hospital birth. This is where I think most women give birth. It makes you feel really secure because maybe not for everyone. There's something to be said about hospital birth. I feel like many women feel more secure because they're in a hospital and it's a hospital, it's a medical facility. It has all the doctors that you could ever need, and it has every medical device you could probably need if anything were to go wrong. Some people, however, do not feel comfortable in a hospital. It can halt their labor and make them feel uncomfortable, and so things kind of slow down. So it's important to visit the hospital and see how you feel when you're there. Do you feel that you are going to feel more comfortable and secure in the hospital, or are you going to be a little bit nervous and feel a little bit uncomfortable about the lighting, the sterility of it? Maybe just being in a hospital makes you nervous. All the different people walking around, the noises, is it going to make you uncomfortable, or are you going to feel better that you have all this medical stuff around you? I don't know. It's completely individual, so it's definitely worth going into the hospital and getting a tour if you can and just seeing what it's like, or spending some more time there if it does make you nervous. In a hospital, you're probably going to have all the medical pain relief options that you could ever want. They're all going to be there. You don't have to use them, but the option is going to be available to you if you want. Something to be said about a hospital is it can be more strict with what you're allowed to do. So it can be that they're not as active labor friendly in terms of they don't want you getting up and walking around and leaving your room. It depends on the hospital, but some of the hospitals want you to go in and lay down on the bed and just stay there. That would never work for me, and I would never do it. I would break the rules if that had to happen for me. Some of them, it's just more strict. They don't want you eating or drinking, or they only want 2 people in the 1 or 2 people max in the room with you. So they can definitely be more strict. So it's something to think of. When you do go to the hospital, ask them, what are your rules and guidelines about food and drink? How is this hospital when it comes to being active during my labor? Some of them might have a birthing pool. They might not. If they do have a birthing pool, though, you might not get it because there might be a woman who's already using it. So you kind of have to possibly, like, it's first come, first serve for facilities. I don't know how many birthing balls do they have. A lot of them don't have a lot of different things you can use for when you're in active labor. They might just have a birthing ball and a pool, and that's really it. So if you're looking to have a labor where you're moving around and walking around and you have lots of freedom of movement, you might not get that in a hospital. The other thing with a hospital is there's a lot of women there, there's a lot of people. So you have to remember that if you are in a hospital, you're going to be surrounded by a lot of people, or there's going to be a lot of different noises. A nice thing about a hospital is there's no hospital transfer. If something goes wrong, you're already there. You don't have to worry about getting in a car or getting an ambulance, going anywhere. You're at the hospital. There's also consultants there, so the maternity ward is probably going to be midwife-led or consultant-led with the doctors and the obstetricians. You're going to have nurses there as well. Something about both the birthing center and hospital is that they tend to do cervical dilation checks, which you wouldn't have at home if you didn't want. If you don't want to have them check the dilation of your cervix in a birthing center, you can request it. You can try to request that in a hospital, but because sometimes they're very busy, they need to see how far dilated you are, and it's something to think about, that there might be more chance in a hospital of you having some kind of medical intervention, because either I don't know, you're under a time limit. I hate to say that, but sometimes it does happen that women go into hospitals and you are kind of put on a clock. Oh, it's been 8 hours and you haven't had your baby yet. You know, we need to induce you. Or I don't know, maybe there's more stress and you get a little bit more worried. I'm not really sure. It's something to think about. I'm not bashing hospital births at all. I'm not bashing any of the birthing places at all, but it's something to think about, that there is more of a chance of having a medical intervention while you're in a hospital. If you didn't want pain medicine and you're in a hospital and it's available, you're more likely to ask for it. It's not something to beat yourself up after. I just want to say, if you end up getting an epidural and you were swearing that you weren't going to have one, don't even feel bad about it. Come on, you're having a baby. You don't know how you're gonna feel. Those are just some things, general things to think about with all three of them. Everything has their pros and their cons. You just have to decide what is it that you really, really want, and what risks are okay with you, and what things are you more okay with and what things are you not okay with. If you really, really want a non-medicated birth and you feel totally comfortable having a baby at home and you have a straightforward pregnancy, it's an excellent option. If you don't want to be in a hospital but you're nervous to be at home and you want a more natural setting, a more flexible setting, a birthing center would probably be a great fit for you. If you're the kind of woman who says, you know what, just get me in there, give me an epidural and let's get this over with, I want to meet my baby now, the hospital's a great setting for you. Or if you're just nervous that something could go wrong and that's really something that bothers you, maybe a hospital birth is perfect for you. So you just have to decide, what do you really want? It's never just one option. You should always look into it. No matter where it is that you give birth, bring your birth preferences, labor plan, birth wishes, whatever it is that you want to call it, bring it with you and talk to the facility before you get there, because you never know what kind of options you might have. So it's a good idea to talk to different women who have had their kids there. What did they think? Think about what kind of birth you really want to have. What's the most important to you? What the rules for the facility are. Think about it, know about it, and that's what your birth wishes, I call it. That's what that plan is for. You can't plan what's going to happen in labor, but I think you can certainly have preferences, and if they're already written down and you've already gone through all the scenarios and all the rules, then you know what you're in for, and when you're in the heat of labor, you don't have to think about it. It's already there, the decision's been made. If you are in a hospital and you strongly do not want an epidural, tell them that before you get there. Put it in your birthing plan. Say, I know I'm coming to the hospital, I do not want an epidural, do not ask me about it, please. You know, there's no reason that they can't respect your wishes. Just know that every facility has its own rules and guidelines that you do have to go by or adhere by. The other thing that's important with all of the centers, or at home, or wherever it is that you are, well, not at home because it's your own home, time. Think about what the time limit, does the hospital have, are they extremely busy? Do they have a time limit? If your labor stalls, what's their protocol for that? Are they going to induce you, or do they recommend that you go home or take a walk around the facility? If you don't want to be induced, it's something to definitely think about. Think about the rate of medical intervention. And also with a home birth, think about definitely how far away you are from the hospital. How are you going to get there? What's the drive like? When are the midwives? You want to have everything organized. So at the end of the day, no matter where you have a baby, just know there are always options. You can always make your labor and delivery as tailored to you as possible within each facility. You don't just have to go and say, okay, I'll do whatever you want. You're having a baby. There's no reason that it can't be close to the way you want it to be. You're already going to choose where you're going to be. If you don't have that option, try and just see what options are available to you. There's nothing wrong with that. I've said enough. I can't say anything more. So good luck choosing where to have your baby if you are pregnant. Have fun doing it. don't be nervous and just be excited, and definitely think about it. I would know by 37 weeks, I would definitely know in my mind where am I gonna have this baby, and I would start to get things organized for that. So thanks so much for watching today. I hope you guys have a really good day, and I will see you guys on Friday. Bye. I just wanted to say that when it comes to where to have your baby, it's a really personal choice. It's something that really only you can decide, and you have to make the right decision for you. So don't let anyone make you feel guilty about where you want to have your baby. Don't let anyone make you second guess. If you are thinking about this and you're making the decision, I'm absolutely certain that you have thought well and hard about all of the benefits, all of the consequences, all of the things that you could possibly think about when it comes to choosing where to have your baby. If you want a home birth, I think that's fantastic. If you want to have birth in a birthing center, amazing. If you want to have your baby in a hospital, that's wonderful. Just remember, the biggest thing that I want women to know is that you don't have no choice. It's not that you have no choice, and it's not that you have no options. No matter where you end up going, think about what it is you want and try and make it happen as much as you can. And try and make your birth and labor as nice for you as it can be, because it's a really wonderful experience. Hopefully it's not going to be scary for you. It shouldn't be scary, it should be lovely. And that's my final thing that I have to say about choosing where to have your baby. Bye.